Good morning and thank you for joining us. My name is Karen Curtis. I am a member of the Provider Outreach and Education team here at WPS. With me today is my good friend and coworker, Aline Sigler. Aline's going to be helping me out today by watching the chat for questions or issues that you may have, as well as providing information and links when needed. You've seen her doing that already today. Now, I've been holding monthly webinars to show the different functions that are available within the WPS Secure Net Access Portal, or SNAP. This is most commonly referred to as just the portal. Now, this month I'm covering the finance card, and that includes 5 different functions. My goal is to increase your knowledge of these functions in hopes that it can make your job easier and more efficient. The examples included in this webinar were taken from a test environment, so these are not real scenarios. I'll also tell you that in case in case your screen may look a little different than mine. I don't have access to production, and our test environment isn't going to have the variety of situations that you're going to encounter. During registration, I did have some participants indicate that they were new to their position. So before we get too deep into the functions that can be performed, I need to talk about portal access, since you will need to be registered to perform the actions that we're going to cover today. When you visit the WPS homepage, there is a large box with our logo, and the portal login box that you see, it's what you see here. If you click on other pages, the logo is going to disappear, but that login box is going to remain. Now, under the user ID field, you will find a link to register. I've outlined it in red on this slide so it's easy to recognize. You will be asked to accept the terms of use for the transactional area and the general area. The transactional area refers to specific actions that take place within the portal, such as data transmission or interaction. General area is going to be broader, and that refers to things such as data privacy, policies, or copyright information. After accepting the terms, you're going to be moved to the provider access page, which is shown here on the left. Here you're going to need to enter your NPI, PTAN, and tax identification number. If you are part of a provider group or a clinic, then you must enter the group NPI and PTAN. You won't be able to register using the individual provider's information. When you self-register, a request is going to be sent to the NPI administrator for your facility or office, and they're going to need to either approve or deny access. So what this means is that you're not going to be able to log in until your request has been approved. Now, you can also have your NPI administrator create an account for you, and this is going to eliminate that approval process. There's also a possibility that you will receive a message about registering as an NPI administrator, and that is shown here on the right. Now, if this occurs if the NPI entered has fewer than 5 administrators. So if you don't get this message, there's no reason to be concerned, nothing's wrong. It just means that you've already have at least 5 individuals in the NPI administrator role. Now, if you are not the appropriate person to take on this role, then you can simply select the No Radio button and continue with the registration process. To accept the role of an NPI administrator, there is certain financial information that must be provided. So you would have to be a person that has access to patient, payment, or claim information that would appear on a remittance advice that has been issued within the last 30 days. Now, the portal does have 3 different access levels. There's eligibility, standard users, and NPI administrators. Eligibility users have access to verify patient eligibility and contact customer service. So the whole finance card that we're looking at today, that's not even going to be an option if you only have eligibility access. The picture that I have shown here is of a standard user's homepage. The MPI Administrator homepage does look similar, except they have an extra function that's titled Users, and that appears on that first practice card between the My Profile and Customer Service options. The finance card, which we are covering today, is going to include functions for refunds, receipts, overpayments, payment status, and AP holds. And we're going to start out with refund entry. The refund function has options to either enter or search. If you're going, we're going to start out with the refund entry function, and that's going to be accessed by selecting that plus sign next to the refund button. You'll kind of notice this throughout the portal functions. If anything has a plus sign next to it, it's for entry, and if it's just a larger box with the word on it, that's usually a search function. So when we click on that little plus sign, that's going to open the Start New Refund form. And from the service location drop box, you're going to select the MPI for the provider who needs to refund money. You will then enter the associated tax ID number, and you're going to click that Validate button. Now, if the MPI and the tax ID are validated, then you're going to be prompted to enter bank account information from where the money should be withdrawn. This information must match the information on the electronic funds transfer authorization agreement. This is also known as the CMS 588 form. I would also like to call your attention to the notice that after 3 failed attempts, users will be blocked from using the portal for 24 hours. So just want to really make sure you have that information correct before trying to enter it. Now, the first question that you're going to be asked is, did Medicare request this refund? Based on your answer, additional questions and fields are going to appear. So here you can see if you select yes, then you're going to be asked whether the refund is related to MSP. You will also need to provide the transaction number found on your demand letter or accounts receivable number. There's also an additional field that you can see here if you want to add additional comments. Maybe there's something else that you want to let our staff know that's going to connect the request, the refund request, to that claim. Now, if you select no, that Medicare didn't request a refund, you're going to receive a different set of questions. You're going to need to indicate the reason for the voluntary refund. Is it related to corporate integrity agreement? This agreement between the provider and the Officer of Inspector General promotes compliance and prevention of fraud. Next is the OIG Self-Disclosure Program. This program allows providers, suppliers, or other individuals or entities to voluntarily disclose self-discovered situations of possible fraud. Or you can choose not applicable. You will need to provide the patient's first and last name, their Medicare number, the claim number, and the date of service. After this information has been added, you can indicate if the refund is MSP related. There is a drop-down box for you to select the reason for the refund, and again, you have a field for additional comments if there's something that you'd like to add. Now, once you've completed entering the information, you're going to have the option to review everything that you've entered for accuracy before you select Submit. A successful submission is going to provide you with a tracking number or a TCN, a refund receipt number, and refund details. On the upper right corner, you're going to see that you have options to print the details, you can start another refund, or you can simply hit done to exit. So now we're going to move on to the refund search. To search for a refund, you're going to select that large button that's outlined in red on this slide. And to start your search, you're going to select the appropriate MPI from the drop-down box, and you're going to enter the tax ID number associated with that provider number. Then you're going to select one of the 6 criteria that's listed to perform a search. Criteria such as demand letter number, TCN, which was what we saw on that previous screen when you hit submit, accounts receivable number, and tracking control number. Those are all pretty self-explanatory. If you select payment date, you will need to enter the refund payment start and end date range. If you select beneficiary, you're going to need to enter the patient's Medicare number, first initial, last name, date of service, and claim number. Now, refunds that meet the criteria that you listed are all going to be displayed. The results will be listed showing the TCN, the refund date, the refund amount, and the status. The demand letter and the accounts receivable fields may be blank depending on the situation. Next is the patient's name, service date, claim number, and Medicare number. Then under the actions column, or under the actions header that's all the way over to the right, there's going to be an icon that looks like an eye, and that's going to allow you to view the details for that specific refund. So here's an example of the refund details. You can see that it takes all of the information that was provided during the entry process and it displays it under different sections. For example, you have the refund information, the submitter information, and the patient information. So it just kind of breaks everything into these separate sections. In the upper right-hand corner, you do have the option to view the claim, which will export the data to Excel. You can print the results shown, you can go back to the search results, or you can perform a new search or exit. So as we move down the finance card, our next available function is the receipt search. And here you can search receipts for refunds that were submitted through the portal, through wire payment, or through paper checks. You're going to start out by selecting the service location MPI from the drop-down box, and then you're going to choose if you're going to be searching the receipts based on the receipt number, the amount, or the date. Receipts matching the criteria will display, showing the receipt number, the date it was received, the status, the amount, and the PTAN. And then again, under the Actions header, you're going to have the options to view the details of the receipt, to download, or to print. Now here's an example of how the receipt details will display. In the upper right corner, you have options to print. You can go back to the previous screen, start a new search, or return to the home page. So next we have the overpayment search. Overpayments are Medicare payments to a beneficiary or a provider that is more than what is due. When we open the overpayment search screen options, you can see that there's quite a few links provided. At the top of the screen is the demand letter search. So selecting this blue button is going to take you to the demand letter search screen. Links that are provided are for a refund, a request for immediate recoupment, ERS, which stands for Extended Repayment Schedule and Mailing, and then at very last one is mailing payment. At the bottom of the screen, you're going to see fields to perform an overpayment search. So you would select your MPI from the drop-down box, and then you would enter either the claim number, the letter number, or the transaction number, and then you'd go back up to the right-hand corner and you'd select on search. Now, if you chose that very first link, so we're gonna kind of go through these links here that you're seeing on the screen. That first one is for e-refunds. So that's going to take you back to the e-refund page that we started at the beginning of this webinar. And then that's going to let you enter that refund information. The next option was request immediate recoupment. If you select this link, it's going to take you to the form that you see here. Now, providers may use this option when a demand letter has been received. While we are looking at this form, I would like to give you a couple reminders. First, make sure that you're selecting the correct contact. Or correct contract. J8 is for providers in Indiana and Michigan, and J5 is providers in Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and there are some national providers that fall under that J5 region. And when we look at Medicare type, this is going to give you an option to select Part A or Part B. Now, this section is referring to the system that processed the claim. So if you select Part A, that is for FIS claims that were billed on a UB04 or an 837I. And for Part B, this is for MCS claims that were billed on a CMS 1500. I just wanted to make that clarification because our financial department has reported that these fields are not always used correctly, and that could cause delays in the processing of your request. Now, the ERS option is going to take you to the Overpayments Guide and Resources page on the WPS website. If a provider receives a demand letter and they're not able to refund the overpayment within 30 days, an extended repayment schedule is an option. The extended repayment schedule and interest rates article that you see here in the lower left corner, that's going to provide you with more information on that process. So just something to keep in mind. That last link that we had on that slide, or that the options, is selecting the mail-in payment option. And this is going to bring you to the WPS Government Services contact information page. And this is on the WPS website. This would be for those who would like to submit their check through the mail. I know this is kind of small, but I wanted to show you, you would, in that contact, you're going to click on that drop-down box and you're going to select overpayments and underpayments. And this is going to provide you with a phone number and a fax number, as well as a mailing address and an email address and hours of operation. There's also mailing addresses depending on your situation. So this top address is for mailing checks when you've received a demand letter. There is a different address if you plan on using a delivery service. Next is mailing checks for voluntary refunds. If you're mailing inquiries related to overpayments and underpayments, there's a different PO box to use. And then last on the list is if you're using a delivery service to send those inquiries. So if you choose to bypass all those little links that we had and you go and you choose your MPI service location from the drop-down box and you enter the letter number, you should receive a screen that looks like this. And because demand letters can contain multiple overpayments, that's why you're going to see multiple results when you use that letter, or could see multiple results when you use that letter. Um, you will need to determine which transaction you want to view, and then you're going to select that eye icon in the actions column. Now, once you select the eye icon, or if you perform a search using the MPI along with the claim or transaction number, you're going to be brought directly to the transaction detail screen that's shown here. I do want to provide some clarification because some words get used interchangeably. So if you use the claim number to search for an overpayment, this is going to be the original ICN or DCN. So in other words, it's the claim that originally created the overpayment. Sometimes adjustments are done to these claims, so you just want to make sure that you're using that original claim number. The transaction number can also be referred to as the invoice numbers, and this is going to refer to the adjusted claim. So I just wanted to explain that in case you tried entering something and you get incorrect results, you're wondering why you're not seeing the overpayment you're looking for. That's just something to keep in mind. Now, I won't go over this whole screen. But you can see that some of the fields at the top have these little information bubbles next to them. So if you need more information on what those things mean, you can hover over that. You also have this middle section that breaks down the original amount, interest, recoupments, things like that. And it breaks it into principal, interest, fees, and last activity. Then at the bottom, you have a summary of those activities. Now next, as we move down that finance card, is the payment status. Now here, from the drop-down box, you're going to select the MPI for the providers whose payments you'd like to review. This is going to automatically populate the PTAN. And then you're going to choose the dates of service, the from and through date, and select search in the upper right corner. Now, payments that meet the search criteria will be displayed. You're going to be provided with the check or the EFT number, the amount of that payment, and the status. You can also find the status date and the issue date. The last function that we're going to cover today is the AP or the Accounts Payable holds. These holds pause payments from being issued for process claims until a specific financial, administrative, or compliance issue has been resolved. Now again, you're going to select the MPI from the service location drop-down box, and then you'll click search in the upper right corner. Now here's a look at the search results. It has both active and inactive holds that will be displayed. Active holds would affect your payments. This could be done for a number of reasons, including failure to submit documentation such as credit balance reports, cost reports, or provider enrollment validation. Um, there could be a do not forward initiative that's placed on the provider if a check or a remittance advice or even a demand letter has been returned from the post office. This would cause Medicare to hold payments until the information was corrected. Inactive holds would be those that have been released within the last 31 days. The search results screen will display the reason for the hold and the release date. Reporting period and actions are also shown. Then under the actions header, it's going to be like what we saw before where you have the little eye icon where you can view the details. There will also be an option to download or print the hold. So here we can see the detail screen. It's going to provide you with a few additional items. This middle section is going to display the percentage of the payment that is being withheld. So in this case, it has the withhold percentage set at 100%. The bottom of the screen is going to show the hold details, which explains that an active hold was placed on the provider. In this example, it was because a cost report was not being filed. You're also going to receive instructions to get the hold resolved. So again, in this example, the provider is going to need to contact the reimbursement department, and that's going to be at the address listed on this screen. So that is kind of nice. If you don't know what you're supposed to do to resolve the hold, then this detail screen is going to give you that information. Now, we touched on this a little bit when we looked at the immediate recruitment request form. We know that you want to repay Medicare in a timely manner. However, there can be delays if you use an incorrect or an outdated form. Missing information or sending checks without explanations or other reasons that can cause delays. So we covered the refunds function today. The overpayment claim adjustment function can be done within the claim inquiry function. Um, Details can be found in the portal user manual, but I do want to go out and take a look at the payment or the overpayment notification refund form because this is kind of the same as the form that we looked at earlier. So here again with a contract, you have the J5, J8, so you'll just want to make sure that you are selecting the correct one. And then again, we have that Medicare type Part B or Part A. And once again, this applies to the system that processed the claim. So it's understandable sometimes when we think of Part A, we think it only pertains to inpatient services, but it actually Part A is any claim that's processed through the FIS system that's built on that UB04 837I. I'm also going to have Aline place a link in to an article on our website that will help you determine what form to use. She'll be putting that in the chat. Now, the last bit of information I need to give you applies to Part A redetermination requests. Effective June 1st of this year, our appeals department is going to stop mailing paper letters for redetermination requests that have been submitted through the portal. This affects all letters. I put a little list here on this slide. Now I have included on this slide the appeals detail screen, and I've highlighted the areas where you can find the status of your appeal, where you can find the decision, and where you can locate the decision letter. Now, last month I did hold a webinar on the appeals function within the portal. So if you would like more information on how to submit redetermination requests or view the decisions, you can find a recording of the event on our YouTube channel as well as our Encore presentation webpage. I will have Aline add links in the chat for that. Now, I believe I answered all of the pre-submitted questions within the presentation, so I'm going to ask Aline if we've had anything come through in the chat.
Thanks, Karen. Wow, that was great information. I learned a lot there. In looking over the chat, I do not see any questions at this time.
Thank you so much. If you do have questions that come up, we'll tell you in just in a minute on how to get those to us. Now, when you disconnect from the webinar, you will be redirected to a CMS survey. I'm also going to have Aline add a link into the chat. I really do hope that you will take a moment to provide feedback on how I did today. If you're watching this video as an encore, you will see a pop-up at the end of the webinar with a picture that says survey. Now the redirect does look like what you see over here on the right. We don't have control over how this appears, so we just want you to know that it isn't spam or anything malicious. In our encore videos, the survey looks like what you see here on the bottom with the stars and the word survey. And this feedback really does lead to changes. Chapters have been added to our encore presentations in YouTube, and that allows you to kind of skip around the video to the parts that you maybe are more interested in. Training indicators were added to the description of our webinars so that kind of helps you decide if it pertains to you. You know, sometimes it may just cover Part A information, so we'll put that as a training indicator. We've also held 2 Medicare education expos based on suggestions for future education topics. We're currently planning a 3rd one, so be on the watch out for that. So I just wanted to let you know your opinion really does matter, so we hope that you will take time to complete that survey. After disconnecting today, you are going to receive a thank you for attending email. This is going to contain contact hours that can be submitted for continuing education units. If you joined only by phone, WebEx is not able to generate this email, so you will need to contact us. In the chat, Aline will add a link to the education mailbox and what information is needed for us to send a certificate to you. If you think of any questions, those can be emailed for up to 7 days with following today's event. In the subject line, if you could put like portal, finance, just so that the staff monitoring that mailbox knows it's related to this webinar and they can send that directly to me. That does bring us to today, the end of today's presentation. On behalf of myself, Aline, and the Provider Outreach and Education team, I would like to thank you for being here today, and I hope that you will join us for future events. You may now disconnect.